Hey guys, so today I'm going to review the questions that we briefly talked about yesterday. If you understand what we talked about yesterday and you already have it in your notes, you can fast forward to the part that you need. What you're going to do throughout this video is you are going to solve the perimeter and area when asked for each of these questions on your own, and then you can play through my video to check your work. If you need to rewind it, you can rewind it. If you know you got it and you fast forward, you can fast forward through it. It is up to you. When you are done, there is a practice paper for you to work on. So for this first question, right here, I realize that this is an area. And so when I have an area question for composite shapes, meaning more than one shape, I need to figure out what shapes I have. Sometimes you have to break it up, sometimes it's obvious. So I have a triangle, and I have a half of a circle. That half of a circle is where people often make mistakes. So you needed two things. You need to find the area of the triangle, which the formula is always, no matter what kind of triangle, 1/2 the entire base times the height. And the area of a circle, which is always going to be on your formula sheet, is area equals pi r squared. Now, this is not a whole circle. We don't want an entire area of an entire circle. So you can either multiply it by 1/2, or in the end, just divide your answer by 2. So those are the two formulas you should use. For our triangle, you should have realized that you have 1/2. The base is the entire base. So this whole thing, I don't want half of it. I'm not looking for a right triangle. The entire base is 12. And the height is going to be from the base to the top, not the slanted part, is going to be 14. Okay. The only tricky thing for this one is you need to remember order of operations, because squaring always comes first. And we know that we need to do the radius, which is going to be half of the diameter. So we know that radius equals 1/2 the diameter. Okay, so you know that your radius is 6 and squared, and then the whole thing is divided by 2. Now, yesterday I told you I would like you to use 3.14 for pi. That will help when you solve it. So if you plug this into Desmos, then you will get the correct answer. We went over this one yesterday, so I'm going to move on to the second one that we talked about. The second one that some of us got to and some of us didn't is the picture at the bottom right. Okay? The first question now is perimeter. So for perimeter, what I need to do is I need to trace every side and make sure every side has a value. So both of those do. As I trace this last side, I realize it doesn't have a value. So I need to figure it out. And this one's obvious. It's the one on the other side, 1.26. Now, the first thing you're going to do is add up these three numbers, and that's going to be your first part of your perimeter. So I'm going to have to pause this. Actually, just go ahead and pause your video real quick. I'll be right back. So, the first thing that you need to do is you're going to add up those three numbers. So you have 1.26 plus 0.84 plus 1.26. That's 3.36. So what you're going to do, I'm going to write my 3.36. Okay, the next part is tricky. This curved line is not the same as the straight line below it. It's curved. You have to do something else. One trick is that a C is also curved. So that's a clue that when you need to find that curved line for the outside of a circle, you use circumference. So I'm going to write pi d. That's the formula that we know. And I'm not using the radius one because I know my diameter. So my diameter is 0.84, but I know it's a half of a circle's outside. So you can either multiply by 1/2 or divide your answer by 2. So I know I'm going to have to do 3.14 times the diameter of 0, sorry about this writing, 0.84, and then you're going to divide that by 2. So I'm going to go ahead and put that into decimals. So you have 3.14 times 0.84, and then you're going to take your answer and divide it by 2. So you should get about 1.31, and then you need to add this plus 1.31, and you will get your final answer. So you should have gotten answer plus 3.36. You should have gotten 4.68. Your final answer for perimeter is 4.68. Okay, for the area, we have 2 shapes, so I'm going to write 2 formulas. Area use formulas. Remember, for perimeter, you cannot use a formula other than circumference because we are not using every part. It is an unknown shape. It is the outside to a random, irregular shape, so you cannot use a formula for it. But the inside, we break it up into shapes, so we can use formulas that we know. So we have length times width, and then we have the area of a semicircle, so don't forget to take half. So I'm going to use 3.14, and then I need to do, that's pi r, so my radius, my original number is 0.84, and to find the radius you have to divide by 2, so it's 0.42. And then you need to divide it by 2 because it's half a semicircle. Oh, and I forgot my square, pi r squared. Okay, so you're going to do 3.14, and then I'm plugging this into decimals, so 0.42 is in parentheses, outside of it is going to be squared, and that's being divided by 2, so you should get about 0.28, and then the area of the rectangle would end up being 1.26 times 0.84, 1.26 times 0.84, and then that is 1.06, and then I need to add it to the, I need to do my answer plus 0.28, so you should get as your final area 1.34. I rounded. Remembering that if you're finding area, your answer is going to be like meters with the squared symbol above it, and when you find perimeter, it's just meters. So if you need to rewatch it, you can, and then I'm going to move on to the next one, so go ahead and pause it and try to solve. We're going to now solve this one right here. So go ahead and try to solve that one, and then watch the video to try to figure out what I did. For this one, what you should have done if you've already solved it on your own, you should have realized that I have 2 circles, and they're full circles. So I need area equals, and I'm going to use 3.14 for pi, 3.14 pi r. So if I look at my big circle, let's start with the big circle. I need to get right into my center. So this 10 is not into the center, but I know that half of this one, which is my radius, would be 5. So my whole radius is, you should have gotten 15. So 15 squared. So pi r squared. I'm not taking half, it's a full circle for now, alright? So I'm going to do 3.14 in decimals, and then in times, in parentheses, 15, and then I need to square it. So you should have gotten, the first one is 706 3.5. Okay, and then from there, I now have a little circle in the center. So I'm going to use area equals, so I still need my 3.14. And my radius, which I've already found, that little half part, not the whole one, is 5 squared. And I'm not taking half, it's the entire one. So I have 3.14 times, in parentheses, 5, close my parentheses, square it. So you should have gotten 78.5. Now, the thing to remember about these kinds of questions is you have an entire shape on the outside and an entire shape you know of in the inside. If you were to find this entire area of this whole circle, that's this first formula that we used. That found us the whole thing. The second one found you this tiny little one on the inside. So what you would need to do is subtract the two. So I'm going to take 706.5 and subtract away 78.5 because I don't want the small piece inside my whole circle that I found. So your final answer should be 628. Okay? So that should be what you got as your final answer. If you're not sure about how I did that or why I did that, you can rewatch it to try to think about it and figure out what I did. Alright, the next one we're going to solve is this one up here. So go ahead and pause the video and try to solve it on your own. Okay, so now you should have solved it, and we're going to do perimeter and then area. So for perimeter, I know that I can find these straight edges to start. The straight edges I always start with. Well, if the middle is 400, the top is 400, and the bottom is 400. So 400 plus 400 is 800. So I've already done the easy part. Now I need to really stop and think about the curved edge and this curved edge. And this circle and this half of a circle together make a full circle. So you could have done a half a circle formula for perimeter or for circumference and then a half of the circle for circumference and then put them together, which is fine. But I realize right now that I have a full circle. So I need circumference because it's curved and my C is curved. And then I know that my formula is pi d. So then I'm going to do my 3.14 times my diameter, which is the whole thing, so 400. So in Desmos, I'm going to type in 3.14 times 400, and that's 1,256. That's what you should have gotten for the perimeter of this shape. And it's yards, so it's just going to stay live for yards. Okay, so that's yards. Now the area, after you solve it all, you'll have yards squared. All right, for area, I have two shapes. I have a square, but I'm still going to use length times width because I don't want to confuse myself when I have a rectangle versus a square. So area equals length times width. And I know it's going to be 400 times 400. So 400 squared is 160,000. It is harder writing with this pen than you would think. Okay. And then I need to find the area of a full circle because two half circles together make the full circle. So just 3.14 times the radius, which means half of my diameter, so 200 squared. I don't need to take half the circle because it becomes a full circle together. If you did it the other way, you are still correct. 200 squared times 3.14 is going to be 125,000. These numbers are real bad. 600. And it's yards squared. Okay? So we're going to continue on. Go to the next page in your notebook. All right. So I'm going to go over just for these questions the formulas and the numbers you should have used. I'm not going to go ahead and work through all the final values because I really just want to make sure that you know that you've used the correct numbers and you've used the right formulas and you've used the correct steps. So for this first one, if I want to find the area, okay, of the shaded region, so that means I want these little pieces here. I want this and this and this and this, and I want this shaded piece. All right, so I'm going to first start with this side, and I know that I need to find the area. So if you haven't paused it already, pause the video and try to solve this one on your own. Okay, so what you need to do is this whole shape from the start with the outside pieces and the inside makes a square. All right, so what you needed to do is to find the area, you need length times width. And then you need to find the area of this little circle that's within your whole square. So the formula for an entire circle is pi r squared. Okay, so your length times width, you have a 40 by 40. So you should have done 40 times 40. Okay, and then for pi r squared, you should have done 3.14. The radius of this is half of that distance. So we know the whole distance is 40, so half would be 20. 20 squared. Remember, you always have to square first. You cannot times before you square. Don't forget order of operations. Okay, once you've done that, you have your whole square, and you want to take that white circle away. So what you would need to do is subtract the area of the circle from the area of the square. And that's how you find these tiny little weird shaped pieces. Every year I have students try to they're like, I don't know what that shape is. Is it a triangle? No, the original shape is the square, and then you're taking the circle away from the square. Okay? For the next part of that one, you need to then figure out this triangle on the side. So the whole shape originally is a long rectangle. So we need the area of a rectangle. So we have length times width, and we know that this amount is 160 and this amount is 40. So 160 times 40, and that gives you the area of the whole rectangle. And then we need to take this one away because we don't want that part. And that shape is a triangle. Not a half of a triangle, it's a triangle. Use the same triangle formula all the time. 1/2 base times height. So 1/2 the base times height, I know 1/2 times the base is 160, times the height, so the height of my triangle is the same as the side of that square, which is 40. And then once you find the area of the first one and the area of that triangle, your goal is to take this triangle away from your rectangle. So your last step would be to subtract both of those areas. Okay? All right. If you want to rewatch that, you can, but we're going to move on to the next one. The next one is going to be, we're actually going to skip this one because that's pretty much the same as what we did up above. So the next one I want to focus on is this one. So go ahead and pause your video and go ahead and try to solve that question. Okay, so here's what we need to do. I noticed that the whole thing from the start, my large outside shape is a rectangle. So I need to write area equals length times width. And I know my length times width, the easy part, is going to be 8 times 4. But then I need to focus on one of these. And you might have struggled to figure out what would I need to do. Well, first of all, I have a full circle, so I'm not taking half. And I know I need to use my 3.14 radius squared. So I need the radius of this circle. I know the whole distance is 4, because that's what it says on the outside of it. You can find that anywhere. So I know that half of that is going to be 2, and this is 2, but I need the radius of one of my little circles. So right here is the radius. So half of 2 is 1. So I'm going to do 3.14 times 1 squared, which is just 1. But then after I'm done, how many of those circles are you taking away? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what you need to do, and I will solve this one, you need to do 3.14 times 1, which is just 3.14, and 3.14 times the total of numbers, so total circles, so that's 8. So we need to get 25.12. And 8 times 4 we know is, you should have gotten 32. And now I need to take all these little circles away from what was originally one big rectangle. So I'm going to do 32 minus 25.12, and you should have gotten as the final area 6.88. All right, the very last one we're going to solve is at the top. Go ahead and pause the video and try to solve it on your own. Okay, so we need area again. So I see that my whole entire shape is a square. We know that that's 30, and that's going to be 30. Okay, so I need to find the area of my square before I can find this weird little piece on the side. So my area of a square is 30 times 30, length times width. And I know that 30 squared is going to give me 900. Okay, now I need to take away this. And you should have realized that that's 1/4 of a circle. So I need to find the formula of my circle. It's 3.14. And my radius, this actually is the radius, because if I have drawn it on the other side, that would make the other half of that, or the other part, the other fourth. And so 30 is already that radius. Okay, so when we get fourths, it makes it a little harder. So I need to do 30 squared. And then what I need to do afterwards is divide it by 4, because I only want 1/4 of it. So in Desmos, you could plug in 3.14 times, in parentheses, 30 squared, and then all of that should be divided by 4. So enter, and then take your answer, divide it by 4, and you should have gotten 706.5. And then now you could take this fourth away from the entire square that was originally there, and then you'll get your final answer. So I have left some practice for you guys. Go ahead and grab it. I will be leaving it on the tall standing table beside my door.